world of coaching evolving and the carousel always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out what they coach, how they coach, and most importantly, why they got into this profession. My name is Kason Wilkinson, and I am your host of the Coaches Why podcast.
That's a great question.
That was my Coaches Why.
Welcome back to another Coach Why podcast, guys. We have a very special guest joining the show today, all the way from Rider University, Coach Chad Duernberger. He's the head soccer coach up there, men's soccer coach, I should say. So we're super excited to have you on, Coach. Appreciate you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Super excited. I always enjoy talking to soccer coaches, football coaches. I'm a big soccer fan, kind of privately, and the people know now if they've been listening to the show. But I'm a big soccer guy. I grew up playing soccer, so I love chit-chatting about soccer. So I'm super excited for this. I'll have some fun questions at the end for you, especially about some of the things that are more personal, more debate questions that I like to ask at the end. So I'm excited for that. But with that being said, I would love to hear a little bit about you. So where did you grow up, and when did you get involved in sports? But maybe soccer, since that's what we're coaching.
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in Bell, West Virginia, which is right outside of Charleston, West Virginia, the capital city. And, grew up in a family where sports were everything. My dad played college soccer, actually where I played as well at the University of Charleston in West Virginia, Division II school. And so he definitely opened up doors for me to, get in the sport. He coached my youth teams for my brother and I. But we definitely grew up in a sports area, I would say. I was a little rugrat running around the fields and courts and things like that. But we grew up in an area where Randy Moss, went to high school, NFL Hall of Famer, and Jason Williams, White Chocolate, also in that area. My brother were on all those teams. So,
yeah.
It was, my mom, like I said, taught them in school. And so, the atmosphere when you got, we didn't know at the time, but NBA and NFL type caliber players, at least I didn't know being so young, just to get into basketball games, to watch the varsity play, which was my team, my brother was on the team. You had to play, or you had to get there before the JV game just to get in the gym, so. Yeah. I'm a young guy at that point. I didn't realize, but I really enjoyed, obviously, the environments and sports growing up in the area I was. And so ended up going to, like I said, played at the University of Charleston Division II. And, after that, I got a GA spot at Marshall University and started my coaching career from there.
Gotcha. Okay. So you were around, that's cool. You got to be around White Chocolate and Randy Moss and grew up in that time frame. That's awesome. You could say that, so being in that environment, you got to see, like you said, the crowds and just people, kind of flocking to watch these two, at least those two in particular. I'm sure there might've been just high school sports usually brings a lot of crowd anyways, but when you get those calibers, right? Like, so whenever you were growing up and you were a little bit older, right? When you were in high school, when you were kind of getting to that position of varsity sports, like, do you feel like having those type of people or maybe that type of history around you, right? Did you think that kind of motivated you in some respect to, not saying that, professional athlete was on your mind. I'm sure it was, seeing them, of course, but do you think that was a motivational effect for you as an athlete to push yourself, I guess, to get to that next level?
Yeah, of course. I think, obviously they were the highest level of athletes in different sports than soccer. I would tell you in the area I grew up, my dad actually started the high school team. And so, in the youth leagues in that particular area, it's a coal mining small town outside of, the capital city of Charleston. So, it certainly, drove me to try to make an impact in soccer in that area. I was fortunate to be, at that time, the club world is so much bigger now. It was big then, but it's, high school soccer was still, in our particular area, very, very important, and it still is in certain areas. But I was all state and also forward of the year in the state of West Virginia. So, it was an impact on my life in that area that I really enjoy and thankful for. And I was definitely driven. You want to be an elite athlete after you you're growing up and you see these types of
Absolutely.
guys and the attention they're getting and things like that. So definitely rubbed off, except for it was just in soccer and then the other sports.
Yeah, I think it's cool when they have that motivation aspect, or maybe somebody you can look up to, especially when they're similar age or not. They're not from 1950 that you're looking up to, right? They're within a few years, and it does help with that motivation. I think that's really cool that you got to be around that and see that, of course, and things like that. So you went to University of Charleston. That was where you spent your college career, and then you went to a GA position at Marshall. So whenever you are, I guess kind of a two-piece here. We're going to start with the decision making, right? So when did you decide that coaching is something that you wanted to do with your life, right? Was it because your dad was around coaching, or was it a particular situation that made you realize that, yeah, this is kind of the route I would like to go?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I started freshman year in college, and my whole idea at that point in time was I wanted to be a sports agent.
Mm.
Coaching was not my interest at that point in time. I will say I always liked culture. I liked the following of teams, and it just at the end of the day, there's some haters against Duke, but you can't hate on the fact that they got this unbelievable culture and following for Duke
For
basketball.
sure.
So
Yeah.
growing up, I really enjoyed that side of things. But I will say, when I got to college. It was like, okay, I want to be a sports agent. I want to work with pro athletes in a different way and represent them and things like that. And then you're going through college and you're learning more and more about the different career paths. And as soon as somebody had notified me that agents go to law school because they're dealing with contracts and they're dealing
Yeah.
with the legal side of things, and I thought I was just going to represent players, help them out, and didn't
Hmm.
realize that side. I learned quickly that law school is just not the route I wanted to go. So doors just kept opening in coaching. Even when I was graduating undergrad, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and a door opened at Marshall to be a GA there, and my parents both have their masters, and they said, well, go get your master's if you don't really know what you want to do, and here's an opportunity to work and help it get
Yeah.
paid for a little bit, and so I did that, and that door opened, and so I spent 2 years there, actually a year and a half, and again, now I'm getting towards my last semester of my master's, and it's like, what's next? I still wasn't, planning to get into coaching at that point. In fact, I was working at that point at Marshall to make a transition from coaching into a GA in compliance, because I thought now the athletic administration side AD world was something I eventually wanted to get into. And as I was finishing up my, second year, first semester of my master's program with one semester to go that spring, I got a call from my alma mater, who had just come off a tough season, and they asked if I'd be interested in the job to be the head coach to come back. Obviously, most coaches have interest and a passion for their alma mater. So, and I knew, yeah, was I ready? Probably not. I was 24 at
Yeah.
the time when I took over. There were guys on the team 23 that I played with. So, the whole thing is unique. You go from side by side in college with players to now being their head coach literally the next year. So you don't see that often, that story, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But I couldn't say no. Obviously to go back and
Mhm.
be the head coach of my alma mater and start a job, and they were 0 and 17 in 2008, or sorry, 2007. My first season was 2008, and so I knew if I could just win a couple of games, we were going to move forward, and so it made a lot of sense, and so that's what started my
Yeah.
career. I went there in the spring, finished my master's, and started the coaching piece at the University of Charleston.
That's sick. Okay, yeah, yeah. Going back and having that opportunity, so early on, and not only age span, being that age, but right since that soon after graduating is pretty unique. I feel like that might have been, which you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I feel like being like you said, you were 24. These guys were 23. These are guys you played with, right? Like that could be a kind of a tough dynamic, especially with going. You were just my teammate, and now you're telling me what to do, right? And so I feel like that can be one of those things that is relatively difficult. We'll talk about culture later, but I feel like that could be one of those things that's difficult to not only build the culture, maybe a little bit of respect. Not that they didn't have respect for you, but that
Of
differentiation
course.
of respect is difficult. So I feel like that might have been that which, or I should say, should be or could be something that is difficult to be able to come right back in and tell people what to do and try to develop what you're trying to build there, essentially, right, in your coaching career, especially being young. You don't have a lot of experience on how to flip that or how to change that, right? So I feel like that could be one of those things that's kind of difficult as
You're
you switch
spot
back.
on. Yeah, you're spot on. The big things I think in those first couple of years were setting standards, but also
Hmm.
building relationships and trying to showcase that I can get players better and the team better. And what I do know about athletes in general, if they feel like somebody can help get them better and there's a connection, I don't think age really matters. They
Good point.
want that's what they want, and so I think once we started to taste a little bit of winning, guys are competitors, girls are competitors in athletics. And so when they started getting a little taste of winning, they were all in. So,
Yeah.
yeah, certainly, you dealt with some things early on. It's a unique story, but really thankful that, Charleston gave me that opportunity at such a young age. When they could have easily went a different direction from experience to bringing in a Division I guy down. They had a lot of different alternative ways they could have gone, and they took a chance on me, and I knew that I had an opportunity, and I was going to take it. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Having that opportunity and like you said, it's opened doors for you, and now you're here at Ryder, and we'll definitely talk a little bit about your or not tenure, your timeline. There we go. Kind of from your Marshall days to Ryder now. If you guys haven't had a chance, or if you guys don't know, I should say, you guys wouldn't have a chance to look him up. But if you guys don't know who Coach is, he has a pretty successful career in terms of building some things. Like he said, he went from 0-17 or the team before him to winning a few games, and now he's guided teams to some championships, conference championships, stuff like that, which we'll dive into in a little bit. But I think it's pretty intriguing that that's kind of how you got there, and that's where you started with this coach who had only GA experience to where now led a Division II program to some wins and building from there. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I think an important piece of all this is some coaches that were along in your journey, right? I think we all have either had great coaches or bad coaches, and we've taken probably something from both of them. So when you think back to and even to this day, you might have some coaches that are mentors to you or around you. But long story short is, when you think of like those influential coaches in your life, who I should say, who were they? Maybe one or two of them, and there might be more, but a few influential coaches, and then what do you think they taught you when it comes to your time frame and stuff that you've kind of took with you?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. A couple that I think stick out. One, it kind of throw you a curveball here, but it was my high school basketball coach at
Mm.
South Charleston High School. His name was Bobby Dawson, and I thought he was just very good at being firm, fair, and consistent with all players. Holding a line of standards, no matter if you're an all-state basketball player or you're a JV guy, and he held a standard for everybody. And obviously, I think every team's got different personalities. The goal is that you have the same mentality, and when it comes to the mentality, it's to win and hold standards. You can
Mhm.
be yourself within that, and that's where your personality may differ. But I think he did a great job of just keeping the collective group on a high standard, no matter who you were. And I always took that with me. And then, as you said, the mentors, I would say specifically for soccer. I worked at Penn State for 7 years. I was the associate head coach for a few years there under Bob Warming. I left Charleston after 3 seasons. We had some success. Yeah, as you mentioned, we won a few conference championships. We went to Elite Eight and finished seventh in the country one year. We finished 10th in the country I was fortunate one year to get National Coach of the Year for Division II, and that gave me the opportunity to move on to Penn State, where as a player I simply wasn't as good. I wasn't good enough as these D1 guys were, and so it's always a dream to play at the highest level, and here's an opportunity for me to coach at the highest level in the Big Ten and at Penn State.
Yeah.
So working for 7 years under Coach Warming. I thought I had an idea of how to coach over my 3 years at Charleston. And then I realized there's a whole nother level of coaching, fundraising, mentorship, man managing, every aspect of running a college program at the highest level was an education every day for 7 years with Bob Warming. And, even to this day, I'll call Coach up and just pick his brain when I've got situations and how would he handle it and what's his advice. And it's nice to have that. It's something I try to teach our players. Get yourself in the room where you're not the smartest, or,
Yeah.
have people that can help you in different ways. If you have questions on, buying a house, well, make sure you got your real estate buddy. Make sure if you want to invest some money, you got somebody in that world that can help you understand and learn. And, obviously your mentorships in your actual career and things like that. And so I would tell you, Bob was, to give you an idea, was, I think when he was retiring, I believe he was number one or number two in active coaches for most Division I wins in the country. So, I got a first
Okay.
class education. I think when I was leaving Charleston with the awards I had, I could have easily tried to keep chasing maybe head coaching roles, maybe a smaller mid-major type role at the Division I level. I wouldn't change a thing because the education I got through going to work for him for those years has made me way better of a coach than I think if I tried to do it, on my own, even at this point, since 2011 when I left Charleston, so I appreciate and thankful to have a mentor like him to pick
Yeah.
things off his brain.
Yeah, the it sounds like, I feel like that there's a lot of people out there who probably would kind of chase that opportunity. Like, I just got Coach of the Year, let me go be another coach, right? And not take anything away from that mentality, but like you said, you don't have any regrets on that learning. So not only is the getting more knowledge, like you said, getting in the rooms with some of these people, but I also feel like the networking piece of this is huge too, right? Like getting to know people, getting to know coaches, picking different coaches' brains goes a long ways. Not only in terms of maybe the coaching side of it, but also like personal side, right? Like you get to know different I guess you did say managing men, right? That's a big thing in today's world, especially with the evolution from, when you were an athlete to even when I was an athlete to now, today's world, evolution of the sport, evolution of young athletes is different, right? And so I think that's a huge piece of the details in that thing. And you've mentioned not only before you talked about coach from Penn State, but you also mentioned yourself about setting standards. You talked about how that's such a big deal. And so, for me, when I think of standards, I'm thinking about the idea that, these are our core values, but this is also what we're not going to dip below. Like we're not, if you have a standard of we're going to be at class, or we're going to be, if we're talking off the pitch stuff, if we're talking soccer, but the idea of, we're going to be this person off the mat, we're going to be this person of respect and all the personal things, right? When it comes to character building, but also we're going to show up to class, we're going to have a certain GPA expectation, we're going to be early to everything, we're going to show these things, right? But also if we're talking wrestling, we expect to give 100% every day. These are our standards, so we're not going to dip below it. And there's obviously a lot deeper and a lot more to it than just those few. But I believe that's also very, very true. If we don't have a good standard set, and if the coach can't follow it or doesn't believe in anything in terms of that, the culture and what you're trying to build can definitely fluctuate and really not get where you're trying to go, which I'm sure everybody would be lying to say if we weren't trying to win, right? Like that's what we're all doing it in our own mind. So, for me, I definitely believe in standard setting and making sure things are, followed from day one. Freshmen coming in, that's what we're trying to do till the day that they leave here. So for you, when you think of standards or setting standards, there we go. What do you feel like are something that's like, what are your standards? What do you feel like is important to you? Just kind of dive into what does standards mean to you, not only as maybe on the coach side, but for you guys there at Ryder as a program.
Yeah, exactly. I would tell you, we definitely have a philosophy and we have core values within our program. And I think what I try to do is I don't like, I tell recruits all the time, I'm not a salesman. I don't want to sell you to come here. I'm going to tell you what we're about, what we do, and then you're going to decide if this is the right fit for you. But the one thing that's going to happen is when you get here, you're not going to say, wow, this is not what he told me in the recruiting process. It's
Yeah,
going to be
true.
identical. It's going to be identical to that. So we go over our philosophy and our core values with every recruit to make sure they understand what they're going to step into. And our philosophy is made up one and first and foremost is relationships. It's the players know that. I even say we're going to win games, we're going to lose games. The last team that won a national championship was in the for Division One soccer. I think was the late '80s. As far as being undefeated. So you're going to lose games. Even the national championship is going to drop games. But the standards and expectations for relationships and how we treat each other should never dip. That has to be what it
Right.
is. And
Huge.
so, I definitely think that we make sure they understand. We're going to have tight knit relationships with our players as coaching staff, and then the player to player interaction has to be held at an elite standard. And so, I give these words, but then I give examples of what we do so they understand. And so within our relationships, we meet with every player 4 times a semester, and those are individuals. I don't want guys to come in with a staff of 3 or 4 coaches and then them sitting across and they feel that pressure. These are
Mm,
one-on-ones. Maybe they sit with me and we go for 15 minutes. The next round in 2 weeks is with another assistant and then another assistant. And I
I
want
like
these
that.
guys to make sure that they understand in these meetings too. Yeah, we may show video, we may talk soccer, but we're going to talk life. We're going to talk about what they're into. Are they getting close to graduation? What's next? How's family? How's home? There's got to be deeper connections, than just the player coach. I call it attacking midfielder or forward or center back is a position you play. It's not who you are. It's what you do. Same thing for
Mm,
me. Head coach is my title, but I can tell you I got a lot more things I'm interested in outside of
for sure.
soccer, and so I want my players to know me personally beyond just being a head coach. And as a family man, as a father, and a guy that may be into the same music at times as those guys. So but when you have those deeper connections in relationships, I truly feel that at that point in time, you can get more out of them as players. When they see you beyond just being on them all the time about, what they're not doing well, or there's a connection much deeper. So relationships is a part of our philosophy. Control the controllable is a big one through our core values, which I'll talk about here in a second. You can only control what you can control, and each of our core values you have full control of. And then the last of our philosophy is called win the day mentality. I want guys who have a growth mindset that they want to become better in everything they do, not just soccer players, but better people. They want to be successful. They want to attack every day to try to be great and
I like
understand
it.
that not every day is going to go well. Same thing on the pitch. You're going to lose. You're going to have a bad day, but do you rebound the next day and try to get after it? And so that's our philosophy: relationships, control the controllable, and win the day mentality. And then from a core value standpoint, attitude, work ethic, competition, and discipline are our 4 big ones. Attitude is massive here. I tell the guys, there's 211 around 211 Division One teams right now for men's soccer, and that's a lot of different cultures. Our attitude piece is always going to be 80% positive, 20% negative. I say that because I don't believe that 100%
Mm,
positivity is always going to be the case. There's going to be times where I've got to jump on players. I got to jump on the team collectively, to get more out of them. But they know the standards of being 80% positive, 20% negative at all times, and those standards don't change. I also know if I can put confidence in them individually and collectively to be great, I'm going to get the most out of them as players. Whether it's a team or individually, and so. Again, I think that's taking the word of attitude and then truly breaking down how we do things and what it is, and not just using a cliche word. So we compete in everything we do. Competition is like any other program, but we get winners and losers. We keep a bar chart of where every guy is after every day in training to get who's the ultimate winner. So we just finished training on Wednesday for the spring, and we have our guy who got in that picture the most out of the full semester. So guys are hunting to try to get in that winner's picture and see if then individually are they the top. And then obviously work ethic, discipline. We're trying to do big things. Guys always tell me I want to be a pro, and so then okay, great. You're telling me what you want. It's my job to set up those guardrails, and then when you start veering off of not what you're telling me, we got to either change your goals or you're going to have to change your habits on what you're telling me your goals are. Those are our core values, and they have the ability to control every single one: attitude, work ethic, competition, and discipline.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love all that. That's really, really good. I like the 80-20 mindset, and just understand we're trying to win the day, and how you approach it, and which is really probably set for which is why I love talking to coaches, because it really plays a factor in all sports. What you do in soccer, like that 80-20 mindset, can play a factor in wrestling or basketball. And I'm a wrestling coach, so for me it's huge because wrestling, a lot of people will get, it's very easy for wrestlers to get in their head. It's individual. I might have had a horrible match, or I'm in a slump, or this person's great, whatever the case is. I've wrestled this girl before and I've lost to her, so my mentality already, it's very easy for them to be like, well, I've already lost this person, so I'm just going to go out there and whatever their potential negative mentality is, really trying to fight for that mental back, right? Get ahead of the game in that. So long story short, I really love that mental side of it, and it's not always going to be positive, but how do we fight for that other 80% to control it, right? We want we don't want 60-40, 80-20 or higher. So I actually really, really like that. And so, especially when you're talking about, like you said, like a lot of these guys want to go be pros, or a lot of these guys, I mean, everybody wants to win, like I mentioned earlier, and like what you're saying. So, the great thing about soccer or football, which, I don't know who was all this. We've had people from all over the country listen, or all over the world before. So it's football for them. But, it's really cool because, like, Vermont won 2 years ago, I believe. It was 2 years ago they won the national title, right? It was the first time, which I don't even know what conference Vermont's in, but they're not in any major conference. They're not a Power 5 conference team, right? And so that's a beautiful thing. At least I could be wrong, but they're not Power 5, correct? Okay, yeah, okay. I thought so. So it's cool because that goes to show that you can win a national title and not be at Duke or UNC or UCLA or whatever the case is, right? And so having that mentality, if those guys work hard enough and they put in the right amount of effort, you can put yourself in position to be there. Obviously, you have to compete and you have to just put yourself in position so you can be there, right? To be in that game. But it all starts with that probably preseason that you have in August to get them in the right positions to be there. And so whenever you think about the time frames of all this, right? Like obviously the mental side of this and all the things you've learned, and really just in general the idea of, you started at Marshall and your mentality went from where you were at Marshall to now you're at Rider as a head coach at a mid-major D1, right? Like, what do you feel like are some of the biggest challenges that you faced? And some of that could be part of what you just mentioned, so getting that standard set and figuring out what standards you want. But maybe it could be on the schematic side, could be whatever else. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced from when you first got that head coaching job at College of Charleston to now, or Charleston? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
University
right.
of Charleston. University of Charleston, yep. And to where you went from there to here, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced?
Yeah, that's where I try to relate to players. I try to relate to players so they understand, like, I'm the head coach. It's not all glorious and everything's perfect for me. And so I try to give them examples of ups and downs that I even go through, in my world. So they understand they're not alone. And, as a player, you might be having some success, then you have some down games or whatever it is, and then you got to find your way to get back out of that. And so, there's been obviously, I had I guess I was an assistant for about 12 years, between Penn State and Dartmouth, and then, before I got back into head coaching of Ryder. And I think, I've learned a lot through the process. I mean, as you're talking, to give you an idea, I had a dream start here at Ryder. When I got here, they were 3-8-6 overall. So I rebuilt Charleston, and then I had Penn State and Dartmouth experience. But I think, the rebuild piece was, what attracted me to this job. I like kind of rebuilding cultures and programs and things like that. And, the first year, my first season was a dream start. We were 12-4-4. We won the MAC championship. Is the fourth largest turnaround for wins in the country. And then we played in the NCAA tournament that year against Vermont, and lost 3-1. Not the year that they had won the national title, but the year before. So, you talk about what you dream as a coach. You're winning a title in your first year. It was
Yeah.
fantastic. The next year in 2024, we were 14-5-1. Everything's rolling. 9-game unbeaten streak, and 14 wins was tied for the most wins in the country prior to the start of the NCAA tournament. And
Okay.
we won the MAC championship regular season, which was the first time since 1997 at Ryder. And then we went back to the MAC championship game, and we lost in overtime. Had we won that, we would have led the country in wins before the NCAA tournament started. But, obviously we're so thankful and pleased for the success we had in year two. Back-to-back championships in some fashion between regular season and conference tournament in your first 2 years as after taking over is a dream start for any coach. This
Oh,
year we struggled. We struggled. We had a lot of turnover of players. As you know, with the transfer portal and side of things, it was a new team, and we didn't have the success. We were down. We won 2 games this year. So you talk about, you're starting your career here at Ryder, and everything is as high as level as it possibly was. And then this season we were down, and so to ride that wave as the head coach, and mentally, you want to have success and lead, and you did it for the first 2 years, and you feel great. And then this season goes down, and so there's trials and tribulations. I was MAC coach of the year in 24. We finished last in the league this year. So you're
yeah.
going to get tested, and but it's all about your response. I'm sure you've had some listeners that have heard the E plus R equals O equation, which I tell our guys, you're going to take some math classes. Some of you are going to go on and use some of these math equations you're learning. Others are never going to touch a math equation again, depending on what you get into. But
Hmm.
you're definitely going to use this equation of E plus R equals O. And that's an event happens plus the response equals the outcome. And so the event's going to happen.
Yeah.
You can't really change that. You have full ability to control your response, and then that's going to change what that outcome is. And
Mm.
so, my response to going from the top of the league and everything's going great to us struggling this year. If I'm woe is me, and we're down and I can't believe this, and however, that's going to change the outcome of the others around me
Absolutely.
and the outcome of our environment and even the outcome of me internally, trying to navigate a season that's not going well. So, I think that was a great opportunity for me to teach the players that it's not always going to go great. There's going to be ups and downs, whether it be on the field, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be in your career. We all have ups and downs. It's just how you navigate it. And so, it was a great teaching moment more than anything, through my success and not success, so far here at Riders. So we're going to bounce back, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
excited about, and, but if I was still like, woe is me at this point in April from last season, the outcome would be we're not bouncing back because I'm not
Yep.
really trying to get the right guys to get. I'm telling them, listen, in 22, they were 3-8-6, 23, we won the championship played in the NCAA tournament. We were 12-4-4. This isn't a 3 to 4 year rebuild. This is going to be something that we can turn around again that quick. So I'm excited for next year. And if I don't have that response, we don't have a chance of getting to that type of change. So, it's all about your response.
Yeah, I think that that's a great learning moment for sure for all those athletes. I think that that's a pretty underrated part of it's the mental side of how you go about things, at least coaching wise. I mentioned that it seems like a lot in the last few episodes is talking to coaches about the underrated piece of coaching is, everybody can talk X's and O's and, trying to get people to be better people and whatever your mentality is, but the mental approach to, how things go, and coaching them through the highs and the lows and whatever it may be, so you kind of touched on it, but like for me, I think something that is always intriguing is like like you said, you went from being a 14-5 and 12-4-4 and some of these records that you have, right, your first few years there, to a down year. So coaching through those, I feel like, is something that some people don't experience necessarily, right? Or they have to deal with certain things, like, for example, right, like you said, what you for Ryder, what you guys were able to accomplish when Gino Auriemma, the UConn basketball coach, when they lost and they didn't make the national tournament, or national championship, I should say, and they didn't, they didn't succeed in their normal terms, like, did UConn fall off? Is he done? Is he this, right? Or when Steve Kerr at the Warriors, when they stopped winning as much, oh man, is he done? Is whatever that is, right? Like, there's always these people from outside talking, which at your level you may get a little bit more of it, and obviously professional level gets a lot more than anybody, but you get a lot of these outside sources. You get, whether it's admin, fans, whatever, right? Like, you get these people, and especially as athletes, you may hear it. And so I feel like it's one of those things that it's very easy to sometimes fall into that trap of, yeah, maybe it's coach, or maybe it's me, maybe I'm not good, so maybe I'm gonna hit the portal, maybe this, maybe that, right? All these maybes. So for you, I kind of going back and coming back on track about this whole mental side of it. You talked about how this is a learning opportunity for not only yourself but for these athletes. So I guess diving a little bit more into that, how do you coach a team or athletes, and like through a tough loss, through a tough season, through we won this game that we shouldn't have won. Maybe let's just say we beat Duke, but we lost to this 0-7 brand new team that's a brand new D1, or whatever the case is, right? Or even just the season, you like in the situation you're in. So how do you coach a team through a tough loss, through a tough season, through those tough conversations, feedback, right? That you have to have with the team in this situation.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a few things that we try to do is have an after action review, to
Mm.
understand what we think went wrong, what went well too. I think it's obviously both. And get feedback from players, and also to make sure the players understand where, as far as it being a player-led locker room, what fell there. I think
Yeah.
for me, I think we've had some great locker rooms in my first 2 years here, as far as the personalities and the leadership. And what I've talked to the players about is, you have your captains, and they're extremely important. But really, for me, what the difference is that next layer of leadership. Yeah, because everybody knows these are the captains. They model supposedly everything that, from the team, and they're the connection between the coaches and the team, and they should be the program model, right? But the teams that, for me, that go the furthest is that next layer of leadership of the 5 to 6 guys that are pushing things. And so it's not just maybe for us, everybody's got different amounts of captains, but our 2 or 3 captains, it's that next layer of guys that are pushing things for them. And now you got, yeah, and some people call it a leadership group or whatever. But I think, we were lacking a little bit of that this year. And I think, with the transfer portal, there's so many new faces that came in. Almost 50% of our roster was new, and going into year three, we won for 2 years. I'm thinking the culture's just rolling at this point. I think I probably even skipped over some of the brotherhood and these presentations I normally do because I thought, okay, some of these guys have been with me for 2.5 years because I came in mid-year of, January 2023. So I had that semester. They know what's expected and they're now leading everything. And that wasn't the case. I think just getting back to the details of everything we do and making sure that we just are harping on all those little details, not thinking organically now it's just taken off and I can take my hands back. We have
Yeah.
so many new faces that we have to grind and as a coaching staff to make sure that even if it's my returning players hearing a presentation on E plus R equals O for the fifth time, there's
Yeah.
new ears that haven't heard it, and we have to do that. I used to think that oh, the guys know, the returners know, they're going to put this into the new guys. So definitely I think having an after action review of how the season went, or that game. I think the other thing is having a mindset where the players on my team know if we get a big win the next day in training, we're moving on. So
Restart.
what's our
Yeah.
next challenge? Celebrate,
Short term
have
memory.
fun, enjoy the win for that moment. But the next day, when we're back in the lab, we're getting after it and trying to get ready for that next opportunity. If we lose, it's the same thing. It's having that consistency that when we get back on the field the next day, it's going to have that mindset that we're moving on. What's next? We review, obviously, match film from the game, win or loss. But then when we get back on the field, we're moving on to what that next opportunity, that next challenge is. So big things are accomplished through the attention of minor details, and so I think just harping on every little detail and not skipping over, thinking it's now doing what it's supposed to do. You got to just continue to. I think you see it in a baseball situation. You got major leaguers who go in a slump at bat and they get back on the tee. The thing they learned on, as a kid, as a 6, 7, 8 year old, getting back on the tee, just taking swings, getting back to those little details to get back,
Yeah.
in the rhythm of what made you successful.
Yeah. The idea that the basics is what got you there, and so it's whether that's individually or as a team, I think is a great idea, is a great mindset there. And yeah, short term memory, having short term memory from today, right, and really building, yeah, win or lose, great, but tomorrow's a new day, it's a new game. Hypothetically speaking, 0-0 on the season, right? We're focusing on the next game, trying to get there, and so yeah, that's a great point there. And I think especially whenever you kind of move and as a coaching side of things, I should say, because I know athletes may have different mentalities, and it's harder for some of them to fall in, to kind of buy into certain things, whether it's you mentioned these seniors or these people that you've had, which, by the way, I feel like I can kind of understand where you're coming from, especially because as a new coach coming in, this transfer portal thing, a lot of people do potentially leave, right? So the people who stick around or stick with you through that, you can kind of fall into, or maybe not fall into it, but expect that, like, well, if you were going to leave, you would have left already, right? Type of thing. So I can understand how that might have, I wouldn't say fallen into the trap of I don't have to do it. Hands off. These guys are kind of leading it, right? And instead of just consistently sticking with it. And I think, there's this book that I was starting to read. It's called The All Blacks, I believe. It's a book about the rugby team from New Zealand. And it was basically saying when you're at the top of your game, change the game, right? And it's not necessarily changing the game, but it's maybe adding more to it, or maybe it's additionally doing something else that's going to benefit the team, right? And something that's really stuck with me because this year was my first year at a college level, and we finished 11th at the national tournament, so a little bit lower than we were hoping for, but top 11, it's not a bad first year. And so I've really decided, even in this notebook, I'm writing some notes down in, which, by the way, if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. But I've written in here, like, don't change what you did this year in the culture side of it, because I've talked about it in the past, these past episodes. A lot of our girls love the culture that we have here that's kind of been instilled here, and not taking the chances on people that are going to ruin it, or not changing what the girls really enjoyed. Obviously I know what I need to get better at and what we need to get better at, but not trying to fall off of that. And I know that's easier said than done. And I've also new to the coaching game in terms to it. I haven't been coaching for, you've been coaching since what, 08 was your first head coaching job. GA was a little before that, so you've been coaching for almost 20 years. I've been coaching for no more than 5 total. So it's one of those things where it's easier said than done, and I know that. And when I get to that point, maybe you can call, maybe I'll look back at this episode and be like, well, you said you weren't going to do that, or something that you told me that to kind of try to avoid, in that situation. Not necessarily that's a bad thing per se. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing at all. I think that it's just one of those things like you've noticed, like I have to make sure that I have to stay on top of this regardless of if they've heard this stuff 10 times or if it's, the first time. So I think that that's huge, is making sure that you stay consistent, and what helped you get there. And so I appreciate you diving into how you keep that feedback and how you learn from that situation, especially after a year like this, because I feel like every coach has that at some point in their career, whether it's at the highest level or at the high school level, right? There's going to have those days and those years that are up and down, and so having to make sure that they do not fall what's the right term? Do not fall off what will help get them to that success. So kind of speaking of adjustments, or maybe not adjustments, but, you've been around the game for a long time, not only as an athlete, but as a coach. But, you mentioned just this is obviously on the mental side, how we approach the everyday in the coaching world. Let's not fall off of here. Let's not do this. But if we're talking more on the schematic side, what do you feel like is an overrated or an underrated drill or technique that soccer uses today, that you see coaches using, see programs using, maybe that you've adjusted to, however you want to answer it? But what do you feel like is an overrated or an underrated technique or drill in the sport of soccer?
It's a great question. I think something that we really honed in on this spring with our group. I think a lot of exercises these days in soccer has to do with 1 or 2 touch play in a possession box where you're restricting the amount of touches a player has. And there are a lot of positives to it. From speed of thought, they got to think ahead because they know they only have 1 or 2 touches to be able to play, and who are they going to play next? So it's speeding up the game and speeding up their thinking, which obviously, as the levels continue to go, you got bigger, faster, stronger, and just tactically more aware players in general. So, I think that is something that definitely has a lot of positivity to it. But I think we probably harp on it a little too much. I think gotten away from players being able to dribble, in certain situations, to wiggle out of a tight space and take an extra touch to maybe to help the team get out of a bad jam of a situation, or just go 1v1, with getting a ball in a wide area and let me go at the defender, or 1v1 and try to beat them off the dribble. So I think there's positives, and we do a ton of 1-2 touch, but then guys get in the game, and then it just becomes so much of them trying to play 1 and 2 touch all over the field, when we're showing clips of one of our center backs and telling him just eliminate the forward by driving on the ball 5 to 7 yards, and that's going to get your team higher up the field. It's going to freeze maybe the next line of defense, because if you would have just passed it right away, that defender can go straight out and defend the next player. But if you drive right at him off the dribble, it freezes him. Now you can play that pass, and it's going to free up the next player even more to make something happen. And so, but we're so used to 1 and 2 touch all over the field that I think the art of going off the dribble at times has been lost. So that was something we started in our possession games. Some days 1 and 2 touch, some days you're unlimited. Find a way to get out of jams off the dribble, and get guys, because there's certain positions on the field that are going to play in tight areas. And yes, they got to play 1 and 2 touch, but sometimes if they can turn you and they end up doing it in 3 to 4 touches, that's okay too. And then we may be able to get in off of that situation because they're so technically sound in tight spaces. So that was something we've been working on this spring.
Absolutely. So whenever you are, obviously that's kind of in the film review side of things, right? Like you're talking to certain positions about maybe, like you said, instead of 1-2 touch soccer, 1 or 2 touch, individually, now you're off the bounce off the dribble, right? For talking basketball, but as soon as you get the ball right, you're taking those few yards with it, so that way you can freeze. But whenever you think on like the as a coach, right? You see maybe you guys are, and I know I just cut myself off there. I apologize, but they have different defensive schemes, right? Like you have and different formations, right? You have you have like 3-5-2s, you got 4-4-1s, 4-4-2-1-2s, or whatever. You have different formations within the world of soccer. So how do you make adjustments in the middle of a game? Is it halftime thing, whatever the case is? How are you making these adjustments to realize like, oh, these guys came out in this formation, and we realize like this, like you said, this off dribble, or off touch individual piece of the game, it's not working so much because they have so much pressure, right? They're keeping this line. They want to keep pressure here for a counter or whatever their offensive mindset is. So when it comes to like the formation, basically beating these formations off of that conversation, how are you making those adjustments in the middle of a game to put you guys in a position to beat it, right? To score your point, to get yourself just kind of continuing pressure to where you can score, if that question makes sense.
Yeah, I think it goes back to when you were talking about mentorship. It was one thing
Mm.
I really didn't mention, but I think Coach Warming at Penn State, his in-game adjustments and halftime adjustments to give us the best chance to win are something that I really took, through my time there. And you have to make changes on maybe your scout was right and it's spot on, and yeah, you got to tweak a couple things. Maybe they decide to come out in a completely different shape, and your scout was not right. And so you're now going to have to figure out areas of the field that you feel like you should attack. Whether, as you mentioned, they have a high line, and we got to go direct a little bit more to make them respect us because we're going to play balls in behind them, or maybe they drop off and they sit as a group of 11 players 30 yards from their own goal, and now we have to break down this block and figure out how we need to do that. And we have to have good tempo on the ball and look and switch the point of attack or break a line or up, back, and throughs. Obviously, going
Yeah.
into a lot of in depth kind of soccer things, but so I think the in-game adjustments are everything. I think you try to prepare the team as best as you can because we don't have timeouts. You can yell from the sideline, things like that, but I'm not going to bring the team in and tell them exactly what changes besides the halftime portion. So
Yep.
I try to get them prepared as best as possible for any, things they may see, within the match. That includes going down a man. Are we
Yeah.
prepared so they feel comfortable in the when a red card happens, which none of us want, but if it does, okay, what's our shape look like when we're down a man? What does it look like when they're down a man and we're up a man? What does it look like with 15 minutes left and we're up a goal or two goals or now we're down a goal? They know exactly the shape we're going to go to as we need to try to change. We've done, 75 minutes of playing the way we want to play. It hasn't worked. Now it's starting to, time is ticking and we got to play a different shape, with
Yep.
more forwards and the guys are comfortable. They already know what we're going to, through
I see.
preparation.
Yeah.
So when it's stressful in those moments in a match, but they feel comfort in knowing exactly tactically what we're trying to do. So I think preparation to give them scenarios is what makes them feel more comfortable. I can tell you for me, there's nothing more than I love than to see my team have success. I told him, in our last meeting, the health of my family and the relationships with friends and family are some of the biggest things in my life. And the other biggest thing is to watch these guys be successful on the field and off the
Yeah.
field. At this point in my life, those are the things I care the most about. And so I try to put them in positions where hopefully the whole team's celebrating in a corner because we just scored a great goal and they're all running down and having fun. They know I don't really celebrate too much on goals. My assistants used to say I'm stoic. I just kind of sit there like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Internally, I can promise you I'm loving it, but I'm not going to be out fist pumping and things like that. But I
Yeah.
love to see my team out, in the corner scoring goals and having a blast. And we show that in training or in match reviews. We show obviously the goals, but we have film from the bench so
Yeah.
they see right when a goal goes in, what's their reaction? Are they a team guy? Are they just got pulled off and they're upset that they, are not in the
Weren't a part
game
of
and
it.
we just
Hmm.
scored? What's your reaction? Again, the response to the event, and so, but we love the show also when these guys are having a blast and they jump on each other's backs after we just
Hmm.
scored a goal or they threw water 30 feet into the air, a couple,
Yeah.
like we love
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff because I want them to have joy and success. So, I like to reiterate and showcase fun,
Of course.
but also get them prepared as much as possible for any scenario.
Body language is big as a coach. I've learned that, and I've been told that a lot. But I do like that you guys have the see how people are reacting, right? I think that's a big thing. When I recruit athletes, part of it they always like I get asked like, what do you look for in an athlete? Like, what are you looking for? And obviously, there's stuff in the actual matches and how they wrestle and things like that that I obviously pay attention to. But sometimes, and a lot of times, I'm looking at how are they responding to their high school coaches, how or club coaches, how are they responding to a win or a loss? Are they super cocky? Standing over somebody, and you see that in today's world. There's a lot of this confidence and cockiness, and some of it's grant warranted, sure, but there is a lot of it that's kind of like, well, you should have won that match or whatever, right? Or baseball, people pimping home runs, throwing the bat 60 feet in the air, right? And see things like that, and whatever the case is, right? But like I see that. I get asked that question, but a lot of it is how are they reacting to a win or a loss? Are they really pissed off and are they throwing tantrums and whatever, or are they taking the loss and shaking hands and walking off, right? After they walk off, it might be different. I obviously don't know those things, but those things are something I pay attention to. So I like that you do that, whether with just within your group. Are you going to be supportive of your teammates, whether you're a piece of that goal or that technically that win? I know everybody's a piece of that win, right? Like your weakest link is what helps you be successful. But I like that you guys have that as just a piece of your culture. I think it goes a long ways, and hopefully it makes people. I would assume it does. Makes people proud to be part of that program. Be proud of this team, right? And so I appreciate that. I think that's a big deal at any level. So whenever you are, I guess I kind of jumped into the recruiting piece of this, but the idea of all of this, you're getting people from all over probably all over the world. Soccer's such an international sport that you probably have people. I haven't had, I'd be honest, I didn't have a chance to look at your roster fully before. I think the first person I saw in there was like a keeper from New Zealand, but I didn't. That's like what I remembered seeing. But you have people from all over, right? So whenever you think about these people who are trying to come in here and fit, um, not only what you're building, but also whenever you think about like the talent side of things or maybe the mental or how they talk or some of the things I'm sure you when you have conversations, what do you look for in your athletes? And secondly, where are you even finding your athletes?
Yeah, I think you should know nobody knows your locker room better than you.
Mhm.
Of course we all know coaches around and they certainly act maybe a little bit a certain way with you there and they let loose a little bit more when you're not around, but you know who they are, who they are as a
Yeah.
person. You understand your locker room and you understand the personalities that are down there. I even tell recruits on the call, I mean that I've been taking recruiting calls since 2008. You can tell within 5 minutes probably if this personality is a fit because you know the 28 guys in your locker room
Yeah.
and you have a good sense of is it a good fit or not based off the personalities you have and based off the personality on the call. Like I said, not every we don't have 28 of the same personalities by any means, but I think you have a good sense of the group
Yeah.
and what fits. And so, I certainly think I try to dive into that and let the players know on the call that I've been doing this for a long time, and I can tell you, your personality fits what we're all about and what the locker room you would get along, with those guys that are down there. Yeah, we're all over the world in recruiting. I've had players from, all over. And I think, I also want to say that we've got Jersey boys. We got New York guys, PA guys, and the local states around us, and then obviously internationals from everywhere. I love it. I like the diversity of the team. I like
Yeah.
having, players that bring either differences on the field, but also backgrounds. And then we also discuss that. Like everybody comes, but again, I do a thing called Culture Fridays in the winter. and I do a 1 hour presentation before training on Fridays for about 5 to 6 weeks, and it covers different things. To give you an
Okay.
idea, we did one on gratitude and being thankful for what this game has given you. And we went around and just talked about what's all the things the game has given you. And it's given them some of their best friends in their life. Some guys, as you mentioned, international, who is now has the opportunity to study in the United States. Some an experience that he never thought was going to be possible. What the
Love
game
that.
has given each guy from success, and some guys are like structure. I mean, if I didn't have structure, I would struggle. And so I know I need to be here, or I'm going to let other people down, and
Yeah.
so it helps their grades and things like that. So we talk about that, and how the game has given all of us so much, and also respect the game. Kind of what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Win and lose with the respect because of what all the game's given you. But with that, it brings in guys from all over the world into one locker room, and we have a family. I know it's a cliche word that everybody
Hmm.
utilizes in a culture, but I truly feel that that's what it is here at Ryder. And I tell the guys, I'm responsible. Like you are, whether you're 25 minutes from home or you are on the other side of the world from New Zealand and you come to play for me, I'm now responsible for you. These guys understand that at 2 a.m. they can give me a call if they have a problem or they just want to talk. Obviously I can't get them out of a major
Of
problem,
course.
but they understand that I'm here to support them when they're so far from home. We've had guys who have major surgeries and been international students, and I called their parents and said, "What's your son's favorite meal back home?" My wife's going to try her best to make this favorite meal from another country, just to make them, as they're recovering, feel like they're at home. And so we
Yeah.
try to do things. An athletic trainer could take certain guys to surgery and drop them off. I take them and I pick them up because, again, I want their families to understand that they're not only going to have a good coach that's going to make them better as players, but I'm going to support them and be there for them through the ups and downs personally. And again, know them beyond just being a central midfielder or forward. And there's going to be something there's a connection that's like no other. So I let players know in the recruiting process, you're going to have coaches that have got some talent. I mean, everybody at Division One can coach to a certain level. No coach is going to be with you personally more than me. And so, I do think, in the recruiting process, I want to make sure that these guys understand they got a coach that's going to be there for them personally and help them try to chase their dreams. I tell them all the time, as you know, most guys say, I want to be a pro on the call.
Of
And I
course.
say, your dreams are my dreams. And they say, why is that? And it's because I want a whole wall of jerseys, because
Yeah.
guess what? In 5 years from now, the next player is going to say, Coach, I dream to be a pro. I want to be a pro. Okay, well, I want to showcase I'm producing pros left and right. So your dreams are
Yeah.
my dreams, because the next guy in your shoes, I want to show them your jersey up here. So
That's sick.
so I think in recruiting, yeah, we're everywhere, all over, locally, and then, portal, and then obviously internationally to try to put together the best team you possibly can. So, yeah, got a diverse roster.
Well, I didn't play soccer past like eighth grade, but I'll figure out a way to. I got a year eligibility left, coach. I got you. I want to come. That got me hyped up. That was really cool. I love the Culture Friday. I might actually think about that in our off season, either preseason or postseason. I love that. That truly is something I never really thought about, is bringing them in to discuss that and talk about that type of thing, right? I mean, we talk about it a lot throughout the year, but postseason, right, or whatever, you still speak on those things, but really that's a time that you can break those things down and really give them something visually or on paper that they can actually, like, this is a little bit more in depth, and obviously hear everybody else's response too, like you're mentioning, is outstanding. And you breaking those things down to where, like you said, if somebody gets hurt or whatever the case is, right, you want them to feel that way. I feel like that's me too. I talk a little bit about things when it comes to my recruiting, and I talk about how, my goals are, I kind of have this big five. One of them is to compete at a high level. You want to be a national champ, you want to be this, like, all right, I want that as well. It fits what our goals are as a team in terms of on the success side. But you're coming in for a degree, you're going to leave with a degree. That's my goal, graduate. The other three are more personal. One, I want you to be that person that you need in the next few years of your life. I want that doors open. Come in here and talk. I've heard all the goods about life, bads about life, ups and downs. You come in here, feel comfortable to talk to me, and that's what the door is, right? The other two, I guess, left are I want you to leave here a better person than when I found you, and the last one is whatever your goals are after this, right? If you want to continue to wrestle, if you want to go in the real world, just continue school, whatever. I want to help be that person in that the meantime to help set you up for that piece of life. So, I really appreciate that. That actually kind of talked about the culture piece of things, because really throughout this whole episode, normally I ask like, how do you build a culture, but I really appreciate how you've kind of talked about culture naturally throughout all of this stuff, and just really like this is what your culture is, and this is how you're building it. Just you've said it throughout, kind of kind of piecing it in with everything else. So yeah, so speaking of those things, so I just had a quick question about, you mentioned really early on about all of this stuff. So when it comes to like recruiting, I feel like in today's world, there's a lot of conversation about the club. So I guess referencing you talked about earlier, club scene and how it's changed from when you were probably an athlete, but maybe even early on coaching. For us, in wrestling world, we don't you have club wrestling. It is something that is huge, and it is one of those things, but it's not, I don't think it's as big as like baseball, or maybe as some other team sport type of approaches, to where you have this big pay to play type of mentality. It's usually seems to be in comparison relatively financially doable, right? For a lot of parents, there are some clubs that are more, but for the most part, it's pretty financially doable for most parents and most families. So, referencing what you said earlier about how it's different, I want this to reference into that recruiting piece a little bit, because ultimately I think that a lot of athletes and people, and maybe even coaches, whether it's more on the club scene or high school scene, maybe college, you can, however it is, I feel like they are in the mindset that you have to do club if you want to go to a high level. You have to do club to be seen by coaches, and there's that kind of that argument that some coaches, I wouldn't say argue, but like, athletes don't know who to believe. Do I believe my club coach? He's telling me, or she or he is telling me, on soccer, I know it might be a little bit different, but like footwork, my footwork is telling me different here. My launch ankle as a keeper should be here, but my high school coach is telling me here, blah, 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 right? These type of things. So I guess what I'm getting to is, how has club changed since when were in it early, and how it's developed over the last 2 decades, 30 years, whatever. And then the second part of that, actually, no, we'll just start there, because I think the second part, it needs its own little conversation about the recruiting piece. But just referencing, how has club changed, and how do you see it influencing soccer for not only the high school level, but those athletes going into the college space?
Yeah. Yeah, I can only go off my experience. Where I grew up, I played club soccer, obviously, and high school at the same time. But I didn't grow up in an area that had, MLS youth academies and things like that, that are bigger than ever, that are bringing players in from all over the country, and things like that. So it is different. I think, the fact that in the highest club, league we have now, you can't play on the high school team at the same time, so sometimes these players are walking the halls of the high school, and they're not on the high school team, and they're probably the best player at that high school, but they're playing
Yeah.
in the club world. So I think that has been a big change of things for players, and I do think there's still good players in high school, and in the different leagues from MLS, ECNL, and obviously I won't name every single league, but I don't think you have to play at the highest league in order to be, the only guy that gets recruited. But at the end of the day, it does come down to, can you be seen, and where can you be
Yeah.
seen? Is it a club that's going to showcase that for you, and these tournaments, and where coaches go? Is it you're in an area where you just simply aren't being seen, and you go to the ID camps, and you do all the showcase ID camps, either with the school or through a third party. So I think it's just trying to understand where you're going to be able to get evaluated, and what's going to give you that chance to have coaches actually watch you play. So I think that's the biggest difference is just you got I think there's more exposure now,
Yeah.
especially with streaming and
So
everything. I mean
yeah, for sure.
sadly I'm not that old. I like to think, but I was mailing out VHS tapes.
Hmm.
To coaches. Nowadays, you're getting emails with links that you're clicking on to watch the YouTube highlight of 5 to 7 minutes. But I remember getting envelopes with letters, right, from colleges that came to the house, and that was really cool experience for me. Where now is everything is email, text, DMs,
Yeah.
things like that. So the game has definitely changed and evolved, obviously, with technology, and it's easier for players to also mass email, a ton of coaches they want to reach out to or different universities they want to reach out to. So I think exposure is obviously better than even when I was playing to, try to touch points with different coaches
Yeah.
throughout the country if you want. So
Hmm.
that's probably the biggest changes right now.
Definitely has. Yeah, you sent the VHS tapes or received them. I was doing senior year was the first year of huddle, so I maybe it was junior year, but anyways, I was doing not the VHSs, but I was burning the CDs. So I was burning the CDs and sent it off for all of my stuff. My going into my senior year, and so I'm kind of in that ballpark too, to where I didn't have the link per se yet, so it was kind of the same ballpark. But yeah, that's definitely changed in that regard. And do you feel like the club scene, or like, because I didn't actually know that you couldn't play high school if you were at the highest level in this club or in a Team USA, whatever it is. But obviously, I want to see USA succeed in the World Cup and at these highest levels, right? And my favorite years probably were a lot of people's years, at least because I remember them the most, was at the end of Tim Howard's time, Donovan, Josie Aldor. So these were like 2014-ish, about 10, 12 years ago. But do you feel like the club scene, which I know you talked about, that you have to be seen to go to these highest levels? Like if you want to go to college, you have to be seen regardless. So that's a fair point. But on the level of to where USA gets to the World Cup president, we get to the point of Final Four, we get to this point of being one of the powerhouses again, or get to that point. Do you feel like this club scene is helping USA get to that point, or do you feel like there's not necessarily, because I know, like, I'm not asking politically stuff, because I know that there are always that conversation of is there politics and this blah blah blah. Not necessarily that point. That's a whole podcast episode on its own. But do you feel like the actual, like, the mentality or the reason or what they're doing is helping develop these American athletes to get to the highest level, to where USA can be in the running for a World Cup year in and year out?
Yeah. As you said, I think people are on different sides of the fence on this one. I would say I am not an expert by any means
Okay.
of the world, but I do think that there's a lot of good things that are being done. I do.
Mm.
I got to have confidence in the system, and like any system, there's tweaks and things to keep changing and evolving to make sure that we're going in the right direction to be successful as a country. But I do think there's a lot of good things within the system of how it works. I think we have more pro players all over the world than ever. In some of these highest leagues that
Yeah.
we might have had one or two years ago, and now we got more and more. I mean, to give you an idea, I was in France a couple weeks ago, and we're watching. PSG versus Toulouse in a league game. And first of all, obviously, as you can imagine, that was fantastic for me, man. I am a
Sure.
West Virginia kid who didn't grow up around these unbelievable pro soccer clubs or anything like that. And so, to be able to experience those types of moments are obviously fun. But I'm watching the game, and for Toulouse is a center back, Mark McKenzie, who is an American player who played at Wake Forest, and here he is playing, as in this match against PSG. And so there's as you mentioned, we all know, Pulisic or all the main players, but there's just so many guys that are playing, pro and all over the world now. So I think we're producing more pros in great
Ever.
environments
Yeah.
than ever. And then the goal is, does it pay off, right? That you keep moving forward, and I guess that's TBD to see this summer what we look like.
Fair. Yeah.
As you know, man, I mean, I'm passionate. I think we all want the U.S. to win and be successful, and everybody's got ideas on how that needs to happen in the ecosystem of soccer. But at the end of the day, you get on a plane and you don't. Sometimes you see the pilots, sometimes you don't, but you're trusting that they're going to get you
Yeah.
from A to B, right? Because you don't know how to fly a plane. But that's their job, and I would tell you, I look at it the same
Fair
way,
point.
that
Yeah.
our national team is doing what they need to do to keep producing players to get us to a World Cup one day. And before I die, that'd be a
It'd be
dream to
great
watch the U.S.
for
host
sure.
it, or to hoist the trophy like that. So,
I
so yeah,
agree.
I'm bought in. I'm all in the ecosystem. Sure, it's got to always tweak and change and get better, but hopefully, I think we're doing some good things.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you diving into that. I got two. I got actually one. I got one more question on the philosophical side, and then we're gonna finish up with some of the fun questions. I have a few that I think we can get. They're gonna be more rapid fire, but they are more debate fun questions, like I told you. So the last question I have is my favorite question. It's the name of the show. It's why do you do this? What's your why?
Yeah. Um, just trying to impact lives, impact players. They're at a pivotal point in their lives. It's 18 to 20 kind of three range where they make mistakes, they grow. You see a kid you get as a freshman, and you watch him walk across the stage, 4 years later or whatever it may be, and you try to just help make an impact in their lives. The game's going to end, at some point. So yeah, to watch them squeeze every bit of soccer we can get out of them in their last year. Some do go on and be pros. I've had guys
Yeah.
obviously are still playing at this point, but there's a lot of guys that move on from the game and they're going to play in adult leagues and things like this. So, are you making sure at the best your ability to have them leave loving the game? But also feeling like you've impacted them off the field. And
Yeah.
again, that kind of goes back to those culture Fridays and how I do recruiting. I tell them that if you want just soccer, don't come here because this is going to be bigger than just soccer. And another one I did on our Culture Friday presentations. I showed a mansion. I mean, this thing had, pillars and a water fountain out front. And I said, how many of you guys want this? Every guy's hand goes up. Coach, I'd love to have that. I'm like, all right, how many of you guys know how to buy this? Hands all go down. Nobody ever teaches you how to buy a house, and so we did a presentation on how to buy a house that hopefully down the road every guy gets to experience. And they're not going to remember I talked about 20% down and PMI and do you
Yeah.
get pre-approved and all this stuff, but they will remember that their coach, out of all people, went over a presentation on how to buy a house when nobody else told them how to.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to. My why is to impact lives, and
I like
you
it.
make them as best soccer players and have the joy of team and brotherhood and family and success on the field. But hopefully, they take one of these culture pieces on into their life, into their family, or how they can impact their communities, in different ways. Based off their experiences by them choosing to come play for me. So if I can
Love it.
impact lives, that's what it's all about for my why.
I love it. That's great. Why? And you told me those guys behind you, just real quick. Those three jerseys above you, are those guys that you've coached? Are those just your favorite players? Like,
Yeah.
are those athletes that you've? Yeah, actually, I guess you can
Yeah,
tell
of
me.
course. Yeah, no, I only put guys up that I've been a head coach for. So
Okay.
through that, I was a 3 years head coach at the University of Charleston D2. I had an English player that played for DC United, made it to the MLS, and played for them for a few years. So I got his jersey up, and then I've been at Ryder for 3 seasons, and we've had two guys sign pro contracts since I've been here. Two great stories. One of them, Babacar Dieng, a Senegalese player who, before I got here, was his first season here, and he had 3 goals in 2022. The next year, my first year, he had 13 goals, and was looked at as not even a chance to be a pro on 3 goals. Next year, he breaks out for 13, and he's getting a pro contract, and he's still playing to this day. So the other one's a great story, and Sebastian Rojek, who played his undergrad work at Stony Brook. He had 1 extra year due to COVID. Tried to convince him, hey, I'm got this big vision for what I'm going to do with the program. I know I'm new. We're going to do big things. Come play for me for a year. He said no in May. He said, I'm going to go chase a pro contract. I got this opportunity in Poland. And then they didn't offer him a contract. And as soon as they didn't offer a contract to him, who's knocking on his door? I'm back, right in his face. Hey, I know you're still available. Let's do it. Come on. And he came, and he was a captain for our team. He won a conference title, played in the NCAA tournament. So everything you would want in a final year of college soccer.
Of course.
And then he signed a pro contract in Poland right after the season based off his year. So it's 3 good stories, that guys either improved through player development or, took a chance and wanted to ride with me, and it worked out for them. So hoping to add more, that's for sure.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be cool to have the whole wall stacked up. We didn't talk development, but if we ever have a chance to get you back on here, I'd love to chit chat and kind of just see what that looks like, because I think it's interesting, and what you've been around, you've seen. I'm sure your development conversation is outstanding. So the final few questions here before we get into that. If you guys are still watching this on YouTube, make sure you guys hit that bell, like, subscribe, all the 9 yards. If you're an audio listener, make sure you guys hit those stars, leave a review, say what you got to say, but say it with your chest, because Coach and I want to hear it. The final few questions I got for you are more on the fun, debatable debate side, I guess. So to get started directly into that, we'll start with this. So you've coached at D2, and D1, but you probably see a lot of different divisions, right? You have JUCO, NAI, whatever. What is the most entertaining division to watch?
Oh, great question. At the end of the day, I think for me, it's what's great about college athletics is the highest level of Division III can beat Division I teams. Same thing for D2. The highest level D2 teams can beat Division I teams. And so, I think people think that or NAI can beat Division I, or certainly it's team by team, as it always is.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But league by league, it's not separated as far as level. There's certainly teams within each one that can have success. So, obviously, I'm going to be biased just because I've been in Division I so long. But it's one thing I always talk about when I was at Penn State. I try to tell these kids that come to camp and have an open mindset. I'm coaching at Penn State at that point in time. I played Division II. I love my experience. I was a starter for 4 years. I was all conference. I knew had I went Division I, maybe I sat for 2 years, maybe a third year, maybe I played in my 4th year. But I found a home that was the right fit. And, obviously, there's going to be a Division I fit that for certain players. There's going to be a D2 or NAI option or JUCO. But everybody's got a different story. And, just because what you see on Instagram is everybody's finest moments. Nobody posts, all their bad. They get a stain on their shirt from food. Nobody's posting that on Instagram.
Of course.
But we all have that moment happen, right? Just know that your story is different, but that's okay. And but find the right fit, no matter what that level is, where you're going to enjoy playing or whatever you're looking for. The degree, this place has it, but it's a D3 school, but their mechanical engineering program is through the roof, right? Go there, go play D3, get this degree, and all of a sudden you're making 6 figures when you get out, and all is good, and you had a great experience, so whatever your track or story, and really write down what you're looking for.
I love that.
I really like that you are not so heavy on like you are a coach that is, you'll preach experience, you preach, which I know you've talked to this whole time about, but preaching experience to these people, even though you're at a Division I, you want that person to go there. That's why they're on campus. But if it's not the right fit, you don't want to stop them from having a good college experience, whether that's with you or not. So I really appreciate that you at the highest level are still willing to be like, yeah, we want you here, but when after you leave here, if it's not the right fit, it ain't the right fit, and that's okay. So I love that. So who's your GOAT?
For soccer.
Correct.
Messi.
Messi. Okay.
Yeah. When I was in Portugal many, many years ago, I met the guy who's since passed, who found Cristiano Ronaldo as a kid. He had Ronaldo's like 12-year-old player pass card in his office, and he basically had founded a few world players of the year, Ronaldo, Luis Figo. He founded Nani, so a lot of pros and just top level guys. So I know there's a lot of Ronaldo fans that are not going to be happy with me, but Messi's just different. Messi's just different in how he plays. That the things he does for me is, and obviously I know he's on the back end now, but the things he's been able to do just separates him because the way he plays the game, I can't even think about being able to do.
For sure, yeah.
So yeah,
I respect it. Okay. If he's not. So if we're talking GOATs, I haven't really talked much about my GOATs, but there's always the debate of like Ronaldo or Messi. So I do lean towards Messi, and Messi is my guy for doing that debate. But I can respect it. He's won every trophy there is known to in the world of soccer. So I understand that for sure. Are you a Premier League guy? Are you a La Liga guy? What's your preferred league that you like? What's your favorite league?
Prem League. Yeah.
Prem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly it's the Prem League. But that's been I think the great thing for the kids these days is just again the streaming technology, the way they can watch all these leagues and everything, the exposure. I just don't remember having as a kid to be able to watch these different leagues and these different teams and all over the world. So, it's fantastic just what they have ability wise to track their best players and, the amount of players, the pro players, our players know. I mean, I don't even know some of these guys that they talk about just because they can track it all day and they love it. And, but yeah, Prem League is certainly the one I probably watch the most.
Are you a Man City guy? Man U?
Ooh, touchy subject right now.
It is
I'm
a
an
touchy
Arsenal
subject.
guy.
Hey, thank you. The first one I've had on here. I'm not. I'm more of a La Liga guy, but if I'm a Premier League guy, I'm an Arsenal guy. So you're the first soccer coach that's been on my side. So shout out to you. I knew I liked you.
Yes,
Yeah,
touchy
for
subject
sure.
right now. We'll see how it ends here, but
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so final two, final four. What's your final four prediction in the World Cup?
Oh man. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna tell you this. France wins it. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not
That's all
even
you're
giving you a
saying.
final four. I'm gonna say
Okay.
France wins the whole
France
thing.
wins it. Okay, touche.
I'm going.
Shout out
That's
to
like
Mbappe.
I'm pushing all my chips in on one team. That's it. France.
That's it.
France gonna win the whole.
You know, I don't hate it. I'm a France guy. Mbappe is probably my favorite current player in the league, or in the world. So okay, fair point. So this one,
real quick, when I watched him live a few weeks ago, I mean, the game is so different when you see these guys in person,
right.
And the movement off the ball or just how the game's going and not what you see just on the TV. I mean, I was blown away. Obviously, we all know he's, the top player in the world. But just to see it live his pace and his touch and his ideas. And he scored a volley outside the 18 with his left foot in the game.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess I have said this before. My favorite player was Zlatan. So for a long time, I was Sweden. And so if it was never America, Sweden. But after he retired in like 2016 or whenever it was, I went to France just because that's when Mbappe was young. So I'm a bandwagon for France as well if it's not America. So it is what it is, but for sure. So France is the one putting all our chips in. Fair point. Final question. It's also debatably another hot topic. What state produces the best high school soccer?
So you're gonna make me get in trouble with other
Some of these recruits.
other places. I guess I
Yeah.
got. I mean, sadly, I got to give you a cliche political answer there. They all
Probably.
do. They all do. I
Yeah.
can't.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah,
don't even want to.
All 50.
Yeah, I don't even want to. I'll tell you what. What I will say, just because again we're located here. Oh, man, it's just it's a beautiful thing for me to evaluate talent in our state here in New Jersey. That's for sure.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the surrounding states. I don't have to go far to evaluate games and players and things like that because the standards are certainly pretty high in this area. And I'm actually we're located in a county, Mercer County here, that's got a lot of history as far as soccer and players and. So it's a beautiful thing with where we're located, thankfully, where I get to be, to be around the game and players and history.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, I appreciate that answer. Very politically correct. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay. But Coach, again, I really appreciate you jumping on and chit-chatting today, talking all your favorites and everything that you went through. I wrote down a lot of notes. Hopefully you guys listening also got a lot from this. So, Coach, thanks again, and hopefully we, in the future at some point, hopefully we can get you back on. But for today, thank you again.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it and enjoyed the conversation. And hopefully somebody can take something on young coach on how they're doing things on what we're doing here at Ryder. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really hope so too. And yeah, I mean, and if you guys have any questions, you guys can reach out to me. But Coach, I'm going to tag all Ryder stuff and tag their social medias and everything in the description box below. So I'm sure if you guys had anything, Coach probably has an email. He looks at every once in a while for random for all the fans out there. But if not, yeah, you guys can go follow the Riders' progress next year and see how well they do and just kind of keep up to date with them. So make sure you guys do that. But with that being said, thank you guys again for listening. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.